Well, let's now discuss the impact of climate change on our oceans. It's something we really cannot ignore. It's a new study that has revealed the declining productivity levels of the Southern Ocean. Now, these findings are contained in a report that was unveiled and discussed at TEDx in Johannesburg last night. I love TEDx. If you haven't watched it, go take a look, especially TEDx Johannesburg. Well, CSIR senior researcher, it's Dr Tommy Ryan-Keogh joining us this morning. Doctor, good to have you with us. And I need to ask the question, it's what is this called? Phytoplankton in the Southern Ocean. Help me understand when we talk about the declining productivity levels. What do we mean by that? How worried should we be? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on. Phytoplankton are simply microscopic marine plants. They behave just like the plants on land that you see around you, except that they form the base of the marine food chains, which is ultimately going to sustain larger animals such as fish and whales. So we really need to care about any impact that is happening to them in the oceans because, they're such an important organism.
And what is the danger as far as timelines are concerned? Because here's the sense I get, Doctor. Tell me if you agree or not, that we only ever seem to talk about environmental issues when something tends to go wrong. The rest of the time, we essentially ostrich in the sand, don't we? We just ignore it until something explodes or there's a massive flood. We don't really worry too much about our environment, do we?
No, it's difficult to raise awareness about these issues. One of the biggest jobs as researchers is that we want to try and do as much outreach to the public as possible to raise awareness about this, because they may seem like these processes are happening in faraway places, but the impacts will be felt by everybody here in South Africa. If you think about that, our blue economy could be directly impacted if we lose this vital part of the food chain.
So that's the doomsday scenario, or the doomsday light version of the scenario. But so what's causing this issue? Tell me about iron stress levels on this phytoplankton. What's causing that? Is there anything we can do to stop that, or is the horse already bolted?
There's nothing really we can do about it. So if you think about, plants that we have on land, if you're growing your own herbs and vegetables, you give them fertilizer so they've got the right nutrients to grow. It's the same as phytoplankton in the ocean. It just so happens to be that the Southern Ocean has very low iron concentration levels. And we've developed a method that looked to see how phytoplankton are responding to this iron concentration. And what we found is that it appears to be that they're getting less and less iron made available to them. We think it is most likely linked to climate change, such as altering of the ocean physics and chemistry. But there's not really much as humans we can do to alter those iron concentration levels, except to say we really need to start getting our global carbon emissions under control to prevent further climate change damage from happening.
And I know that this is all part of TEDx Johannesburg as well. Do you get a sense then, Doctor, that South Africa as a government, as our environmental ministries, do we pay enough attention to something like this? What would you like to see our government do, or our ministries do actively in our oceans?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, the Department of Science and Innovation and the Department of Environmental, Forestry and Fisheries have really great research programs. We are investigating everything from phytoplankton all the way up to how whales' migratory patterns are changing around South Africa to the Southern Ocean. So we're already conducting a lot of excellent groundbreaking research in this area. It would be great to see more effort being made in South Africa for the just energy transition that is required,
Help me understand that. Add some more meat to the bone for me. What difference would that make?
Well, if we begin to lower our carbon emissions as a country, then not only will it provide greater energy security for everyone here in South Africa, as well as providing new skills for a whole new generation of South Africans, but it will also mean that we'll start to meet our climates underneath the things such as the Paris Climate Accords. Already air pollution in South Africa is a big problem when you get closer towards our coal power plants. But if we start to transition to renewable energy, things, I believe, will get better overall for South Africa.
Yeah, and just because, Doctor, you led me there very nicely, I'm not going to turn this into a political discussion, believe me, I don't want to do that. But just because you mentioned coal-fired power stations, it's going to be a big debate now, isn't it? And I've asked this before to other environmentalists. I've said, as a country, I'm starting to get the sense we almost need to choose. I wish we had the best of both, but we almost need to choose. It's the environment versus blackouts. So where would you land on this? Because the economy is being tanked at the same time the coal-fired power stations are tanking the environment. Where do you win? Where does your rock fall?
There's no easy answer to this one. I think that ultimately, if we do, you know, fossil fuels sort of act as a stopgap until we can fully transition to a renewable society. They have to play a role for us right now. We cannot get away from that. We need to use them, but we should not be looking at building new coal power plants in the future. We should be looking at renewable energy to eventually take over for them. That way we get the best of both worlds. We secure our energy security for now, but then we are meeting our environmental obligations in the future.
And I didn't even mention a political party. Very smooth, Dr. Tommy Ryan-Keogh. Thank you very much indeed. It was good fun. I wasn't trying to turn it into a political interview, but he led me so nicely to coal-fired power stations. I couldn't help myself. Dr. Tommy Ryan-Keogh, senior researcher at the CSIR. Go look out for TEDx Johannesburg, by the way. If you've never watched a TEDx talk, they're so short, they're tiny. 4 or 5 minutes, and they have wonderful, wonderful guests. And I'm sure TEDx Johannesburg is the same as well. The doctor was talking to us about iron stress levels of phytoplankton. I know it sounds very high level, but the very real impact we're going to start experiencing very, very soon.